Sorry, I am not in class today, but Henry hasn't been sick in a while, so that's a blessing. But he is not feeling very well, so the only time they could get me in is this afternoon. So I'm having to miss 6th and 7th period. I wanted to make sure that you all knew what was going on because you still will have your test tomorrow. It'll be on subject-verb agreement and the cask of Amontillado. So I'm going to go over what you need to do in class today. I've also told the sub, whoever that is, what you're supposed to be doing as well. But the first thing that you're going to do is when you come in, the sub should give you your editing sheet for the week. You need to work with your group on Monday's paragraph. There are 22 mistakes in all. You cannot use your computer or any device. You already know that. Remember, we want to do better than we did last time, so please take your time and try to find all those mistakes. There are 22 in all. Okay, she's going to give you, or he's going to give you about 15 minutes to work on that, and then when you're done, the first thing I need for you to do is to go to your notes that are on your Google Drive for subject-verb agreement, or some of you might have written them. I just want to make sure that you have all of them because, again, you are having your test tomorrow. So I'm going to pull up the notes there on this slideshow. Okay, so I'm going to go over them. And again, if you miss something, then you need to pause the video where you missed and you need to type those notes because, again, that's what you are going to use to study. So the first slide that we went over was this one, Rule 1. Plural nouns usually end in an S, but we know that singular verbs end in S. So it's the opposite. Singular verbs in an S, plural nouns in an S. So if you have a singular subject, then you are going to choose, more than likely, a verb that ends with S. Remember, it says usually, so there's always an exception. Rule 2, singular subjects need singular verbs. That's what subject-verb agreement means. They agree, they are the same. So for this example, he is my subject. Washes is my verb. Those agree because he is one singular pronoun. Washes ends with an S. That goes back to that first rule that we just talked about. So washes and he agree. That is a singular subject with a singular verb. Okay, this second sentence is very important. When you are looking at a sentence on your test or wherever it might be, if you have a prepositional phrase, which we know if it's between our subject and our verb, that's called an intervening phrase, you do not look at the object of the preposition. You find your subject. So in my neighborhood is a prepositional phrase or an intervening phrase. So my subject is actually girl. Girl is singular, so I have to choose a singular verb. Plays is singular. It ends in S. Rule 3. Plural subjects need plural verbs. So now we have the sentence again, but we change the subject. The subject is now they. They is plural, so I have to choose a plural verb. My plural verb is wash. It does not end in S. Okay, take a second while I plug my computer up because it's going to go dead, and look at the second example. Okay, the second example, I have a prepositional phrase in between my subject and my verb. My prepositional phrase is in my neighborhood. So I'm going to look at the word in front of my prepositional phrase to find my subject. That's girls. Girls is plural, which makes my subject plural, so I need a plural verb. Play is my plural verb because it does not end in S. Remember, neighborhood is singular, but that does not matter because that's not my subject. Girls, that's my subject. Rule 4. You do not determine if a subject is singular or plural based on a word or a phrase, a word in a phrase or clause that comes after the subject. Meaning, if I have something that is in between my subject and my verb, you do not look at that phrase or clause, you find the actual subject. So an intervening phrase is a prepositional phrase that comes between the subject and the verb. So look at these examples. The apartments across the street. Before I even look at my verb, I'm going to find my subject. Well, I know that across the street is a prepositional phrase, so I'm going to just not even think about that. I'm going to look at my subject, which is apartments. Apartments is plural. Since apartments is plural, I'm going to choose a plural verb. My plural verb is do. Remember, most singular verbs end in S. Eli, one of my friends. One of my friends is a clause or a phrase in between my subject and my verb. My subject is Eli. Eli is singular, so I'm going to choose a singular verb. Was is singular. It ends with an S. Okay, my next example, the planes pulling up to the gate. Pulling up to the gate is describing the planes. That gate is not your subject. Planes, that's your subject. It's plural, so I'm going to choose a plural verb. Were is plural. It does not end with S. Okay, the next rule, these are the ones that are kind of confusing. We're going to start talking about indefinite pronouns. So indefinite pronouns can be subjects of sentences. We know what pronouns are. They are place nouns. Indefinite pronouns are pronouns that maybe you wouldn't realize can actually be subjects, but they can be. If you have a singular indefinite pronoun, you're going to use a singular verb. Here are all of the singular indefinite pronouns. If you do not have this chart, you need to type it. You're not going to have to list these on your test, but you're going to have to know them to be able to pick the correct verb. So I like the way they set these up. They organize them. So each, think about it, it's singular because you're not talking about something as a whole. You're talking about them separately. The same with either. And then all of these, body, we know body is one, everyone, no one, someone, anyone, and then just one. That's one, singular. Thing, anything, something, nothing, everything. Think about thing as one, singular. So if you have any of these as a subject, you're going to choose a singular verb. Okay, these are some examples that we went over. If we did not get to this in your class period, you need to type these. So each of the athletes, I'm going to look at my chart because I know that of the athletes is a prepositional phrase. So my subject is each. So I'm going to look at my chart. Well, there's each. It's singular. That means it's a singular subject, so I'm going to choose runs because it ends with an S. Okay, look at this one. Neither of the women. I'm going to put of the women in parentheses. That's a prepositional phrase. And my subject is neither. I'm going to look at my chart, and my chart tells me that neither is singular. So I'm going to choose the singular verb, which is. Someone. Okay, well, I already remember one. One is singular, so I'm going to choose a singular verb, was. It ends with S. Okay, this sentence, it should have a question mark here, but this is an inverted sentence. We see that the verb comes before the subject. Doesn't matter, it still has to agree. Everyone, well, there's that one again. That's singular, so I'm going to choose the verb with the S, does. Okay, just like singular indefinite pronouns take singular verbs, you also have plural indefinite pronouns which take plural verbs. You only have 4 of them, both, several, few, many. When you look at these, it should be pretty obvious that these are plural more than one. Okay, now look at these examples. Of the games is a prepositional phrase. I'm going to get rid of it and find my subject. My subject is both. Both is on my plural chart. That means it's plural. And I'm going to choose the plural verb, which is were. Okay, this next sentence, few that I know of. Okay, that I know of is just a phrase coming in between our subject and our verb. Our actual subject is few. If I look at my chart, there's few, it's plural. So I'm going to choose have. Several of the runners. Get rid of the runners. That's a prepositional phrase. My actual subject is several. Look at my chart. Well, there's several, so it's plural. So I'm going to choose the plural verb, which is are. Okay, this is the last rule that we're going to go over, and this is a little bit tricky, but it's super easy if you really pay attention. So singular or indefinite, plural indefinite pronouns. What that means is you have some pronouns that are indefinite that can be either singular or plural. So for you to determine if they're singular or plural, most of the time you're going to look at the object of the preposition. So this is the only time when the prepositional phrase would matter. The only time it matters is if you have a pronoun that could be singular or plural. Okay, here they are. You have to know these. I would definitely make sure that I memorized all of these. So all, any, more, most, none, some. They can be singular or plural. So let's look at some examples. Okay, some of the tests is or are hard. Okay, I know that of the test is a prepositional phrase. I'm going to put it in parentheses. My subject is some. Now I have to remember, is some singular, plural, or both? Okay, well, let's look at our chart. Well, there's some. That can be singular or plural. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at my prepositional phrase and find the object. The object is test. Remember, the object of the preposition is the last word, the noun or the pronoun at the end of the prepositional phrase. Test. Test is one. So that's singular, which makes some singular. So I'm going to choose is. Okay, let's look at this one. Some of the questions. We'll have some again, but guess what? Just because it's singular here does not mean that it's going to be singular here, because it can be singular or plural. Of the questions is a prepositional phrase. Some is on my singular or plural list, so I'm going to look at the object of the preposition, which is questions. Questions is plural, so in this sentence, some is plural because they have to be the same. So some is going to be are, because that is plural. Questions is plural, which makes some plural, so I have to choose a plural verb. Okay, most of his routine. Of his routine is a prepositional phrase. Then I'm going to look most as my subject. Let's look at our chart. Well, there's most. It's singular or plural. So I have to look at my object. My object is routine. It's singular, which makes most singular, so I'm going to choose a singular verb, sounds. Most of his jokes. Well, there's most again. I know that it can be singular or plural. So I'm going to put of his jokes in parentheses. I'm going to look at the object, which is jokes. It's plural, which means most is plural. So I'm going to choose the plural verb, sound. Okay, look at these two. They're inverted. Of the feedback. That is a prepositional phrase. My subject is any. Let's look at our chart. Well, there's any. Any can be singular or plural. Since it can be singular or plural, I'm going to look at my object, which is feedback. That's singular. So I'm going to choose was because it's also singular. Okay, this sentence. Of the reviews is a prepositional phrase. Any can be singular or plural, so I'm going to look at the object, reviews. Reviews is plural, so I'm going to choose were because it's also plural. Okay, those are the ones that you need to know for your test. So remember, pause the video at any time to go back and look over any of these rules that you need to type.